Hello, welcome back to the LawyerFair Podcast. We've had a few weeks off. We've had holidays. We've had a little bit of time in the sun. We're doing a small fundraise. It's all going on in the background. But I felt if I was going to come back with a new guest, it had to be someone that I really think is a star. And this guy is Jimmy Vestbirk. I met him towards the end of 2014, I think. And he had just kind of arrived in London and has set up something called Legal Geek, which really was to try and create a community within the innovation tech law startup world. And you meet lots of people, and they have loads of ideas, and some work and some don't. And I just thought this guy is so great and so driven. He's going to go great guns with this, and he absolutely has. Been involved in various initiatives since then, and the community has just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Jimmy explain a little bit more.
Send lawyers, guns, and money. Hey! Send lawyers, guns, and money.
US is, I love going over there. There's so much happening. It's so refreshing to to go over there and bring those lessons back to the UK.
Yeah, well, New York is probably my favourite city in the world. Listen, I think Polly will have faded us in by now, Jimmy, and I have to warn you, she fades me out very quickly if she thinks the conversation is boring. But I'm chatting today to Jimmy Vestbirk. Welcome, Jimmy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Not at all. This is the LawyerFair Podcast. We've had a bit of a hiatus, actually, Jimmy. We ramped up and did loads of podcasts and then various things. And one of the reasons why we've had a bit of a hiatus is we are on our next funding round. And Jimmy, you are immersed, and you're going to explain in much more detail, but you are immersed in this world of legal tech with Legal Geek. And I'd like you just to give us a little bit of explanation as to what is Legal Geek.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, that's exactly right. We live and breathe the startup. We're startup focused. The kind of core objective of Legal Geek is to make London the best place in the world to have a law tech startup. And we do that in a number of ways. But the interesting thing, I think, in London particularly and the UK is we're global leaders in the legal profession. And you'll know that in the law tech space, there is a movement towards it, but we're definitely falling behind some other countries. When you look at relative to the legal market size, I would say we're definitely not punching above our weight in the law tech startup space. We have a lot of legacy sort of IT system based companies based out of London or that have offices here. We don't have a huge startup movement, although in other verticals we really do. So Legal Geek is about bringing together that community, and it's very much community. It's not chucking loads of brands on events and sponsorship and really heavy. It's just let's build a community and try and solve some of the problems. I actually just started it as market research into the space. I'm relatively new to the legal space, and we just really hit on something that there was a real need for this, both in the UK and America, to be honest.
Well, Jimmy, I'm going to blow some smoke in your direction here, which I don't normally do with guests, but I'm going to do it with you because I met you on your first event, I think, which was back in mid-14, was it maybe? And Jimmy said what he just said to me then. He said, look, I've got no background in it. I want to do a bit of market research. I feel this is a sector or a space which is going to go gangbusters. And boy, Jimmy, I have to say, you've done an awesome job. I mean, just tell us about the trajectory growth of Legal Geeks since that first event.
Yes, that was the first time we did in the UK. We'd done one previous, the same event in San Francisco. And in San Francisco, we had 30 people. When you came, there were about 60 people. And it was great that you came. Thank you very much. And then we built up, and we did quarterly events last year. And that was, so we went from 30 to 60 to 120 to 250 people. There's now 1,000 people in the network. Wow. It's certainly the biggest network in Europe, if not the world, for law tech startups. And we do these quarterly events. We did a hackathon, which is the first proper true 24-hour charity law tech hackathon around law for good, which I can come on to in a bit. But yeah, it was the growth has been amazing, and the appetite and the quality of the is really high in our community. And we still do things like we do founders drinks now, just for founders to get together quarterly, just to meet for drinks. Then we do the bigger events around things like AI or blockchain, and it's all about creating an opportunity to educate, but people in the legal profession, but also to really the core is to build a platform to showcase startups in the space to potential investors, to potential clients, or potential markets to disrupt.
And so, how's your market research going? I take it
Yeah.
I take it you're convinced that this is a space to be in.
I'm completely convinced. It was actually off the back of that meeting you first came to. I had an academic was there, a really nice guy, Ian, and he we had a follow up meeting, and he did a lot. He documented a lot of the fintech stuff, and he really reinforced this to me that he went to the first meetups of fintech it would have been 6-7 years ago now, and he said really similar climate, really similar style, really similar discussions where culturally there's sort of resistance that this isn't going to work, but also there's a lot of people that really believe in it and see the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I've seen that real change of all the levers are pulled down now. Now we're just waiting for everyone to kick off, and the interest in it is actually, we're having discussions now with managing partners who are really getting it. The interesting thing is I find that the top of law firms really get it. They may not get the technology, but they seem to get that there's a change happening, and the younger generation coming into law firms so tech savvy, it's like second nature. And then there's this kind of mid-market, which some people get it, some people don't. I don't know, they've already been too culturally conditioned to it. But I'm more interested in disrupting startup stuff anyway than kind of enabling existing models to thrive. I think there's been a huge opportunity for law firms to innovate and haven't necessarily taken advantage of that yet. And I just feel like there's a much bigger opportunity to change the business model of law.
Well, Richard Susskind always said, and I love to quote him quite often, it's very difficult going into a room of millionaires and convincing them to change their business model. So the change has got to come externally. I mean, it's interesting.
But it's the same as going to a black cabbie and saying you got a high billable hour, you've got a great brand, you're absolutely killing it, you're globally renowned, everyone loves you. Why would you change? And these things, the rug can just get pulled out from under you. And I think that, I know it's a bit cliche to talk about the taxi model because everyone talks about the Uberization of everything, but I do think there's enough case studies to say actually this change can happen relatively quickly. And actually one thing from every firm, every non-legal business I speak to is there's a real strong appetite for change in the space because no one is happy with delivering legal services. I don't think people say, oh yeah, I'm really happy my lawyer is so efficient. Very often, nearly often enough.
Not a statement you hear that often, I have to say. But I mean, listen, there's a reason why I'm in it and you're in it is low innovation space with what is it worth? 25 billion in the UK alone. So listen, the opportunity is huge. I was interested in what you said there about those at the top getting it, because the points of resistance that we've had, for example, is that a lot of the young Turks coming in at the bottom who are tech savvy, they want a different model. A lot of the young lawyers coming in they can see it's broken, but their point of resistance is the partnership model, is the fact that the guys at the top, why are they going to invest in innovation? Because it's going to affect their PEP. So, but you're finding that, is this city firms more that are looking a little bit more far-sighted at the top?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm talking to the bigger firms at the moment really about that stuff, and I think there are new roles appearing in law firms as well. These kind of people who are not naturally they're from San Francisco or Microsoft. They're kind of the wish-washy titles, but like innovation or strategy or whatever. But they're not born out of the legal profession, and I think that they're being given resource now, and that's actually a kind of a key market for us with Legal Geek. Is you've got new roles, people who get the change, whose role is there is to create new business structures or whatever it is. But the business model is you come back to your previous point. It's a room full of millionaires aren't going to change them. I do remind myself, I talk about this all the time, but I do remind myself, if I was a partner taking £1 million out a year, would I, with 5 years left, would I really be saying our business model's broken, let's risk all of that career's work for something that I won't benefit from? But I do think some of the partners, that lack of change is, their legacy could be that England or the UK loses its global reputation for excellence. To liken it to manufacturing, we lost kind of manufacturing to China, to say, just generalize, but we kind of kept the innovation here. And I think it's key to have the innovation and be the cutting edge and the technology and the development UK based for the profession to have that global perception of expertise.
Well, listen, let me ask you a more general question. So you arrived, 18 months ago with a blank piece of paper to some extent.
Yeah.
Anything that has surprised, disappointed you, that's come out of the blue that you look back on now over that 18 months?
Yeah, I think it's, I did particularly for the first 6-12 months in this space. It was giving me sleepless nights, to be honest, thinking that I could have chosen easier verticals. I'm a startup guy. My network is all startups, and it is a super difficult space. There's a lot of pushback, a lot more pushback than I thought. So I talk about the senior. It's still like. It's still good, but it's nowhere near enough. And I've had some really promising meetings with people, and then I've realised it's just a bit of tie kicking, and it's like being seen in a space rather than adopting it. And that's why I really enjoyed doing the charity hackathon we did, which was with the Hackney Law Centre, because it was a charity delivering legal aid, and they genuinely wanted to use technology to deliver their legal service in the most efficient way, not because they'd make more money, not because they wanted to be seen as using technology, because they wanted to deliver more legal services more efficiently to more people, and it was a really great cause. And to me, that was really refreshing. I'm surprised at the amount of pushback. I'm surprised that the business model is the way it is, and it's still like that. I'm involved with another business, and when we speak to the lawyers, I'm always surprised how many people are on the conference call and the norms of these things, and I just don't think it's acceptable. So I was surprised at the challenge, but I'm really pleasantly also surprised at the last. Speaking to a lot of startups, I mean, there's a lot of startups I speak to in the network are relatively new, coming in the last 6-12 months. So there is a wave of change, but the older ones, and I'd be interested to know your point, is that have seen a bigger change in the last year, and it's saying the market's a lot better, and certainly seeing a lot from the investment community. There's a lot of investors particularly identifying the legal space as a really interesting vertical, and they're wanting to move into that. Fintech's pretty crowded now, health tech's pretty crowded as well, and law tech is definitely on the radar of these investors.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I mean, we got going properly, I suppose, beginning of 14, end of 13. And there was a great stat came out of the US, actually, Jimmy, which you're probably aware of. But the spike of investment in legal tech startups went from, I think in 13 it was 66 million to 450 million in 2014. And we, as often is the case, we're 12, 18 months behind that. But so we're in that moment now. And certainly our experience, we're going back out to raise our next round. I mean, people get the fact that legal tech is a hot space now, whereas even with our seed raise, which was only 15 months ago, even then there was a resistance to it being a traditional sector. Yeah. So it's completely changed, and I have to say to you again, to your credit, I mean, Legal Geek are, part of that movement, and I was with a very, very large firm, which I won't name here, but I'm happy to tell you, a very large firm recently, who were attending and getting involved with Legal Geek, and it was their kind of window on the world of what's happening, really.
And there's a lot of, so one of the things actually, so Legal Geek, we create structure around the unstructured startup for organizations like those big law firms or technology companies in the space to come in. We're quite picky on who gets involved in that level, because we want them to be involved for the right reasons, kind of things I've talked about before about cultural issues and so on. But when we see there's value from them, we're looking for win-wins. So when we see value from major law firms or major technology companies being involved in the startup space for a win-win for the right reasons, they want to give back to the community, either involved in a hackathon or providing whatever resources we need. We can. It's a really nice structured way, and the startups. People are starting to raise money from the community now, and we're getting more angel investors from the legal space. We found that lawyers can't invest. They have the tax incentives on getting involved in an angel level are so high, but actually a lot of lawyers can't invest in. If the Barclays are their bank, they can't invest in a fintech startup or whatever those reasons are. That they can invest in law tech. And the irony, I mean, I see a lot of law firms now investing in startups, and I find it a really strange where it's easier for me if I had if I had a startup to try and get rid of emails for law firms or whatever it was. It's easier for me to get a law firm to invest in me than to tell them for them to adopt my technology, which is just I suppose that's part of the business model that's kind of peculiar, where it's a mindset where we'd rather invest in something we don't really get, but be seen in it and have the marketing play than to use it. And then maybe there's like a competitive advantage than actually to use it. And it's just, It's not used. It's not normal, that, I don't think.
No, it's a real dichotomy, isn't it? Just for those that are not familiar with what hackathons mean, just go into a bit more detail about what happened and what the result was of that hackathon that you did.
Yes, we did the hackathon for the Hackney Community Law Centre, the charity that provide legal aid in Hackney, and we wanted to. I connected with them because they were doing some really cool stuff with webcams, actually over Skype, remotely connecting barristers with law centres, clients, and there are loads of issues they have, and they just don't have a technical reason. So I wanted to do a hackathon, and we did a hackathon which connected. We had 160 people register, and we did it at Google Campus in Old Street, and it was 24 hours.
Sorry, Jim. Yeah, just to make it clear, this is a 24-hour blitz, isn't it? From zero to finished.
The really cool thing was we had 2/3 of the people. We had people that were there into teams, so some law firms entered teams, and then we had 2/3 of the people didn't know each other that entered. And we started off. We split the room at 7:00 on Friday night, and we said, right, all the hackers go over here, all the hustlers go over here. So hackers were like coders, UX designers, and the hustlers were lawyers or entrepreneurs or whoever it was. And then we kind of split out them into themes of problems, and then they all matched up. And we ended up with 10 teams. They stayed for 24 hours, drank some beers, had some pizza, some Red Bull, some coffee, and they coded problems from scratch to solve problems for the Hackney Law Centre. At the end, we had a really good panel that judged them, and some amazing outputs from that. And it was people built like virtual receptionists that were based on AI that you could text in any language and it would reply to you in your language using Google Translate. It was like, that was insane that people built that within 24 hours. There was a full virtual receptionist, and Freshfields won that, and they've gone on to dedicate a resource to help the Hackney Law Centre in a technical sense, and it's something we're building. So Legal Geek is about making London the best place in the world to have a law startup, but it's also, we have a really strong Law for Good arm, and the Law for Good arm is to help bring together technologists to donate time to these legally focused charities. After the hackathon, we had a huge interest on that side, and we're working with the Law Centres Network and different organisations to actually help build something amazing. And I think that when I was in San Francisco, we saw there's a huge like gentrification issue of in areas, and a huge like property issue. And we're seeing the same thing in Hackney. And with the Law Centre, with this, we wanted to. We're in a bubble around Old Street that I'm really aware of, and there's, everyone's raising loads of money, changing the world, and we're all high-fiving all the time, but actually it has a negative impact on the people next to us. And the Law for Good arm of Legal Geek about bringing that together in a more structured way to help these law centres, people who are getting evicted because they can't pay the rents anymore, etc. And we've just brought on our first employee and the community manager to help build that. She's an ex-lawyer, Helen, and she's going to be building the Law for Good arm. She also volunteered in law centres previously, and she basically helped organise the hackathon anyway before she joined. So it's really exciting to have her on board, and we're hoping to accelerate that involvement. It's a kind of nice pro bono CSR piece as well for organisations to get involved in.
Listen, Jimmy, I couldn't have asked for a better guest, frankly, to break my 2-month hiatus from the podcast, but I am going to have to stop it there. The website, for those that want to have a more in-depth look, is legalgeek.co. That's legalgeek.co, but we'll add that to the podcast notes. Jimmy, thanks so much, and good luck with everything. And I promise I have failed to make the last 2 or 3 founders drinks, and I've always had a clash in my diary, but I'm going to be at the next one for sure.
You're on the email list. You won't miss out.
Thanks very much, Jimmy. All the best.
Cheers,
thanks for joining us.
Send lawyers, guns, and money.